Hey, how you guys doing? Michael X. Yeah, so it's not looking too good for us here, you guys. Seriously. I'm gonna go ahead and leave the World of Tanks background running. Let me go ahead and get rid of the tank sound. Let me go ahead and we're gonna look at this update real quick. It's gonna be kind of weird because I'm gonna use my desktop for it. So it might look strange for a second, but we are going to cover some, I'm going to say pretty important stuff, for sure. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and say that I haven't played the PC in over, I don't know, 6 months, and there's a huge reason why, and it's because of the imbalance between the Japanese tanks in multiplayer, and the imbalance between the mouse and how the mouse just became. I mean, it's just you only need two vehicles to play. If you didn't play them, you're gonna probably get wrecked, and that would be the mouse, and the Type 5 Heavy. They were absolutely just unstoppable on the field, and I was actually hoping that, I mean, well, they nerfed them, they buffed them, and then they nerfed them. And I don't know why they would give us the same thing on here. They also are going to give us the... yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there that a lot of this stuff sounds amazing and sounds great and all that. And they did balance and buff these to make them, you know, competitive against the, you know, the S tanks and stuff. But I'm going to go ahead and say that some of these vehicle nerfs and buffs are gonna just basically just make this game completely different. If you are somebody that likes playing Russian, you know, Russian heavies, and you don't really like slug tanks, considering that they haven't actually nerfed artillery, this is gonna be very, very horrible. And that I'm gonna say that you probably will need artillery to actually to stop these tanks. Just gonna tell you, I don't actually, I to this day don't understand why they even buff these to begin with. I always thought it was to, like, maybe they just wanted to get rid of people. Now, I did notice one thing. They're going to give us, you know, a health increase on the IS-7, which right now it's at 2,400. So this isn't the... This is just a buff, but it's not going to be like it is right now. It's not the buff. So I wanted to go over these nerfs and buffs with you. You guys can read them as we're going if you guys are, you know, interested. I was just going to point out some of the ones that I noticed that are going to mean that could possibly mean trouble for us if you're somebody that enjoys playing World of Tanks. If you don't enjoy playing World of Tanks, you're going to really not enjoy it now, because I'm just going to go ahead and say that if they basically give us the non-nerfed versions of the Type 4 and the mouse, if that's what they're giving us, that's the only two tanks you're going to need. I'm just going to tell you right now, Sir Falk, his whole rant was due to the fact that those tanks are so imbalanced that you can't play regular tanks in battle. You can't. And I'm going to say that although you can shoot APCR and heat at them, it doesn't mean you're going to pin them. If they're the buffed versions of the tanks we're getting ready to look at. A lot of collision models being changed. Some stuff, you know, I mean, absolutely doesn't make any sense to me, or I don't even care. I'm going to go ahead and say this is like the second time they've nerfed and buffed the Panther. I'm going to go ahead and say that the Panther's aim time being, is it 2.20 is ridiculous. Nerfing the, I'm going to say some of the nerfs that they put in the last 3 months to premium tanks makes me want my money back. For instance, the CDC used to be one of the best snapshot vehicles where you could come up over a ridge, auto lock a target, fire, and back off before you get hit. Now, if you do that, you'll probably be hitting the sun. And even with vents, you know, vents helping you, even with premium consumables, it's still a bad tank. And I'm going to say another tank that suffered from this was the AMX-30, which is still a good tank, but you really got to sacrifice either load or you got to run premium consumables. And I mean, it's a bad thing. So the Panther getting, a speed buff. I thought they already gave this to us, and then they nerfed it recently. Like the Craft Panther is a really good example of this, where it was actually a good tank. I was at 80% on my second mark, and then they did something to it, which was the aim time, which made it so I can't hit anything. I am a glass cannon, basically, and the only games that I can play well in the Panther, or the Craft Panther, were same tier, and even then I'd have to sit out for 2 seconds and 20 to fire, which means I have to sit in the back of the map. Now this is just one thing where I go, it's a little too late to buff this. It's a little too late to give us a speed increase, and I don't understand it. I am going to go ahead and say I do understand the if you guys check this out, the 8 gun depression, because you're gonna need it. I mean, when the Kurgavan comes out, it has like, I think it's 12 gun depression, but it's not impervious to frontal assault. But it, yeah, it's a very difficult tank to play against, and so a lot of these are what these changes are to deal with this. But some of these are basically just going to repeat the same problems that made a lot of people quit PC. And I'm just going to tell you right now that it's really terrible. Now, the Tiger 131 has great DPM, but I'm going to say only in, when used in certain circumstances is the Tiger 131 an amazing tank. For instance, it's fast, it's maneuverable. You don't need APCR most of the time. You get preferential matchmaking. It's a decent tank. The gun armor, I think, is, basically this. I've had my gun broken repeatedly recently on almost every tank. It seems like a tier 2 could break it. And I think that a lot of these are to deal with something they changed in here that they're not mentioning, because they did it to a lot of vehicles. So the VK30, this thing is a king circle tank, but it really does have to sit in the back. It doesn't really have enough armor. So a lot of these tier 6s are to deal with the Swedish tanks that are coming out. Like, for instance, I'm gonna buy the one that I have on the screenshot. I'm probably gonna get that, but I'm gonna go ahead and say, since I've been looking through these developer notes, and I've also played on the PC, I did notice some stuff that's very disappointing, and I'm gonna say that a lot of people left PC because of it, and I'm gonna say that right now would probably be a good time for me to jump ship on Xbox and go to PC. That way I can avoid being annihilated by, super heavy tanks, or just wasting all my premium on a tank while I'm bouncing it, even with premium shells. And that's really what's going to be coming out here soon. It's going to be what Sir Fox screamed about, what he got mad about. Let's just take a look at this. Now, if the lower plate is nerfed to 90 millimeters, then this would make perfect sense, and this would be the buffed up version but nerfed, where you could still pin it. But on the PC, they made it so you couldn't even track pin this thing, so it was unstoppable. Basically, it just keep driving. You'd either track it, and there's no way to pin it. And I don't know, I'm just telling you guys, I would say, if you guys have this tank, you're going to be absolute kings on the battlefield. Seriously. But if it's the nerfed version, you're just going to be able to survive a little bit better. The thing about the mouse is it's too slow. Artillery, goes for it because it's just a lot of hit points. It does need a turret buff. It really does. But it needs to have some weaknesses. Now, if you guys look at the difference in the buffs here, buff to nerf, 240 to 260 on the turret is not going to make a difference because people already shoot heat at it. It's not going to matter. People already shoot heat. You're still going to be able to pin it, but he can look slightly left and not have to turn as much. And he's going to be able to return fire much quicker because of this aim time. This actually has better aim time than the Craft Panther. And that part just makes me go, this is basically exactly what we just seen on the PC that destroyed the game. I mean, I jumped on the other day and I only seen 14,000 people on, in the United States, and I was like, is it really that bad now? And I'm going, this is something, I mean, they probably should look at what's happening on the PC and go, maybe we shouldn't go ahead with this update because, or at least maybe we shouldn't do these ones. Or if we're going to do it, maybe we should learn from what the PC learned and then give us that. And that's what I'm hoping they're going to do. But knowing Wargaming, they're not going to do that. This thing's going to be completely unstoppable. It's going to be like the E5, just absolutely broken. Which I would say that if the E5 stood beefed up, I could understand this, because at least then you'd have a tank that's relatively fast that could take shots from this thing. But I'm going to go ahead and say that that's going to get a hatch nerf as well. So the E5, you guys might as well just retire it right now. If you guys are going up that tech tree, up that line, it is not going to be a fun tank to play. I remember back before the hatch was buffed, and, you know, there's nothing worse than having tier 8s pinning you from across the map on that hatch, and that's basically what we're going to be looking at. Now, there is a, you know, chance to have, you know, better RNG, but if you guys have played it like I have, I got my mark on it, I'm basically going to retire it, I mean, as soon as this update comes out, because I'm going to say that you can't fight anybody frontally, which we're going to look at. I'm going to show you guys what they've done to it that's made it so, well, I'll just say no, I haven't seen an E5 on, but maybe twice in, like, I don't know, about 150 games. That's how bad they nerfed the E5. So, although I like the E5 the way it is, I'm going to say that it is overpowered. And I'm going to say that they probably could have just nerfed the lower plate a little bit more. I mean, I think it's ammo racked almost constantly from its bottom plate if you're shooting it in the right places. But I'm going to say if you have bad RNG, you won't be able to pin that thing anywhere. So even with heat, the turret could bounce at the hatch. Now that the hatch is going to get nerfed back to what it was, you know, just standard shells is all that's going to be needed. Seriously. You might need it occasionally if you're lagging, but... So let's look at the mouse, which is going to become the king. And it's just, you just need it. If you guys are going to play tournament, this is going to be absolutely needed. You have to get it. Otherwise, you're going to lose. It just plain and simple. The mouse is the king. Now, if the lower plate has been nerfed, it's still a good tank that's competitive. It's just you have to hide the lower plate. And that's the problem, is that the mouse right now can be track pinned. And they tried to stop that on PC, but they over buffed it. As you guys can see, 240, 210, and 210 on the rear of the vehicle. So you need to have a, you know, tier 8 you know, fully upgraded gun to even pin this thing. And they want to go ahead and make the turret you know, 260. So that basically is going to eliminate tier 8s from being able to pin you all together, and standard shells off of medium tanks pinning the mouse's turret frontally. Which is fine with me. I mean, the thing needs it. It really does. But I'm going to say when it comes to this lower plate, this is going to be a horrible problem, the lower plate. They haven't mentioned anything about the hull yet. But I'm going to go ahead and say that if it's just the turret buff, that's fine. You know, if it's just the turret being buffed, that's great, because that's what it needs. You still need to be able to pin that lower plate. You still need to be able to pin the sides. So it does look like, if you're reading this, that this isn't going to be the super king tank. But I'm going to say that hull down, if you can get it hull down, I mean, you know, that's still a quite an increase. But I'm going to say that looking at it for the second time now, seeing that it's not the hull armor being buffed as well, but it could be. I mean, just because they're not saying it, you know. So the updated HD collision model turret armor buffed. And of course, this is the 128 that it gets. It's going to get, what is it, 0.38 accuracy to 0.36. Now, keep in mind, this is with a 75% trained crew. So, you know, this is actually going to have like 0.30 accuracy if you're running everything and you have a good crew. Aim time, going from 2.9 to 2.1. That is better than the Craft Panther. Seriously. I mean, if you guys think about that, that's better than a medium tank. Now, shot, was it, disposition during, disposition during turret rotation, gonna go to 0.6, it's gonna go down by 1. So it's gonna be able to fire on the move a little bit better, but it does look like they're gonna leave the hull the same. Now, I don't know for sure. So I'm gonna say if this is, you know, we've seen what happened on the PC. Let's go ahead and you know, not repeat the same mistakes twice. You know, then that's great. But we'll have to see. I don't actually own the mouse, and I'm probably not going to go for it. I really do not like slow tanks. They really bore me. Seriously, they bore me tremendously. About the slowest tank I can even play is the STI or the IS-4, which has been nerfed recently. Its speed has been, you know, nerfed. So the other German tanks don't really bug me. I'm going to go ahead and say that I am going to go ahead and tell you guys that if you guys own the Luva, or if you have owned the Luva, you should probably submit a ticket and get it back right now, because it's going to become better than the Tiger II. It's going to get the 150 millimeter front plate. So if you've already owned this tank and you sold it because you hated the fact that it can't sit out in the open, that 150 is going to make this thing at tier 8 the worst tank you're going to ever run into, at least from my recollection on PC. That it's absolutely overpowered, and you need something like the, you know, what is it, Object 252U, or the whatever it's called, the Defender. You're going to need something like that to go head to head with this thing, because it becomes a really good, you know, it's a really good hull down vehicle. It's got good everything. Look at, it's going to get go from 8 to 10 gun depression. Now this is to compete with those Swedish tanks. Like I said, the Swedish tanks have absolutely, some of them have, you know, they should have, you know, just because of the way they're made, you know, using hydraulic suspension. I mean, the thing should have up to like 26 gun depression. I mean, seriously, I don't know what the highest gun depression is, but in order to compete with that. Now the E50, I'm going to say having 5 and then going to 8 is just going to make it that much, you know, better. And I don't see any problem with that. It does need it. And I'm going to go ahead and say, in real life, if you look at the way the gun is, it does look like there's a lot more space in there to go down. And I've noticed that with a lot of tanks. For instance, well, let's just talk about like the T-32. All those tanks look like they have a lot more room in them to get better gun depression. And some tanks were designed to give you gun depression by making the entire turret go up and down, which we haven't been able to use, which, you know, always bugged me. But I am going to go ahead and say that this is another thing. I'm going to go ahead and say that on the PC, the turret could be pinned with heat. Now, I can only pin the VK right now if I'm up close and shooting it at heat in its turret. But frontally, you can't even hit it if he's at 100 meters. You can't hit the hatch. It always seems to hit the gun. You could try, you know, the only thing that this tank has to worry about is like super tank destroyers. And this is going to get a, you know, horrendous buff. So the hull armor is going to go from, you know, 100 on the side to 120, which I'm going to go ahead and say that I've seen people playing this, and most people don't even have a clue where to begin with it. And I think this is going to be very bad for PC. Or sorry, for console. I think this is going to be something that people are going to struggle with now, because they're going to be able to just sit out in a field and angle, and you're just going to get annihilated by the VK4502B and its tier 10 counterpart. If you look at the turret, it's going to get 265, which does make me go, you know, I'm going to say that the VK45 turret and also the E75 turret have become unpinnable recently. I mean, I can't pin them, not if, you know, it's not that I can't pin them, I think I just can't hit the small area because of the inaccuracy on console, but maybe that's just me, but I can't hit them frontally. And if you're in a pickle and you're trying to pin this tank, you just end up wasting your silver, you know, wasting your gold if you're using gold. This is something that I think doesn't really, it's not going to really make any kind of a difference for the Panther. It's still going to be a terrible grind, and I don't think it'd be really worth it. But this should actually be the upper gun it should have been originally, and that's the 88 L100, which you actually, the only time you get to use it is when you first get the E50, on the road to the E50. So something else that bugs me about console is that once you earn a gun, you still have to use it on your next tank. Either that, or use silver or gold to free XP past it, or use your free XP if you have any. Now the VK02 is a terrible tank for me. I've never liked it. It's a good ramming vehicle. It really is. You can ram stuff with it. But I will say that giving it a little bit better gun depression should increase its survivability. I'm going to say the 105 on it has never worked well on console because, well, HE just doesn't work at the same. It really doesn't. I've actually tried to shoot 105 at artillery recently using a Sherman, and I only did 30 damage to the top of the turret, and I couldn't understand why, you know, why the HE is so nerfed. I don't even know what's going on there. I will say that at tier 5 on PC, if you're playing, all you're going to do is get derped by a Sherman. People just play Sherman all day long, and they use the 105 on it. They pop up, and they do 350 to 400 to any tank that comes by. And, you know, that's a really annoying thing. So this is probably not bad having HE kind of, you know, nerfed a little bit generally. And, of course, the VK02A is going to go get better gun depression. It's going to get its elevation increased. It's just going to get a complete overhaul, which I'm going to say this tank has needed it desperately. It's one of the reasons I've never gone up the mouse line. I don't want to play the VK45. Now, I'm going to say that they're going to give it a buff of 100 to a 150 on the hull. So, hull armor, you're going to get a buff from 120 to 150, which is going to make it basically almost identical to the King Tiger, except tier 9 tanks can still pin through that relatively easy with their standard shells. Now, obviously, if you have some bad stuff going on, that's going to be, you know, not something you guys want to do. But all guns, max elevation. I'm assuming, you know, with this, giving 8 gun depression is so that they can actually be competitive. You know, the problem with this idea for me is that on the PC you can actually pin the turret wherever you want to. On console, it's very hard to hit because we're not as accurate. There's also, we don't get overmatching, and they do on PC, so this buff is going to be kind of, you know, I don't know. I mean, it's either going to make this thing so OP that, you know, it's going to be one of the best tier 8s, or it's going to become, you know, the most spammed with gold vehicle, which either way, Wargaming wins that. So yeah, the other stuff with the guns doesn't really matter to me. You know, the 88 in any form is a good gun for me. It doesn't matter, even if it only has 169 pin, it's still a good gun. The 88. So the E50M, to make it competitive with the Swedish tanks, it's going to get 8 gun depression, which I'm going to go ahead and say, when you're going up against a tank that has unlimited gun depression, you know, this is going to only help you just a little bit on specific maps, you know. But it would be cool if you got 8 and 10 off the side, which would live true to the German kind of style. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I mean, you know, I have the tanks. I can look at them. I am going to have to redo. I'm glad I never did a review of the E50, E50M, because I'd have to change it after this. So these other tanks really don't, I mean, I don't have these tanks. I don't have the Awful Panther. I'm gonna say that I don't know if it needs a beef or not. I don't know if it needs to be buffed. I don't know. So Indian Panzer, I'm gonna go ahead and say that tank has always needed a little bit of love. I'm gonna say when it came to speed. The turret has also got a really huge weak point on it, so it does need to have a little bit better maneuverability. I always found that it could turn left and right on a dime, but its top speed really does hinder it when you're trying to get, you know, whilst they play with the big boys and the medium tanks, you know, because it doesn't go quite as fast. But we'll see how that goes. I don't actually own the tank anymore. I sold it. This is something that should have came out when they released this, which is 8 gun depression for the Leopard PTA. And I'm going to go ahead and say that the actual Leopard 1 should get 10. I don't know why they didn't change it. I guess it would be too OP, because, I mean, yeah, that would be ridiculous. That tank's already, it has no armor, but yet it can just stick people, you know, with that L7 on it. So as far as the, you know, this is the most exciting one for me. A lot of people don't agree, but I'm going to say that 235 pin isn't enough to pin lower plates on most tier 9 to tier 10 tanks. I mean, you can, but it has to be dead on most of the time. Now, 246 is going to open up the possibility to maybe not, you know, shooting so much heat with the E100. I know a lot of people that say I never use it, but I'm gonna tell you right now that you know, if you can get good RNG all the time, you know, yeah, that's great. But you know, and if you're shooting people and your round actually hits where you're aiming, then you probably could. Or if people are being stupid and giving side shots, you know, that's great. You could use the standard shells, but 17 seconds to reload. I think it's 17. I could actually look, but I'm just gonna say it's pretty long. It's a hell of a lot of time to basically bounce and then wait again. By that time, you could be dead. So 246 means that, you know, you could actually pin tanks. That's just slightly under, you know, it's slightly under the standard shells from the IS-7. Slightly under. And this is, you're still talking about doing, you know, 600, 700 damage a shot. I'm going to go ahead and say this is something needed too. I've actually ran into the grilly, and you know, it come up on me, shoot, and then run away, and I couldn't even hit him because he's so fast. You know, it's gonna get a derp basically. It's gonna get kind of a derpy thing. Now this isn't gonna change it dramatically, but it is gonna decrease. You know, it's, you know, like snapshotting is gonna become a lot harder, and I think that's why they did this. But I still think it needs a speed decrease. You know, an actual speed decrease, not the gun, but the actual speed of the vehicle should be decreased. And then, of course, in preparation for, I guess, I'm hoping the artillery nerf, they're actually giving us more horsepower to make some of these real slug artilleries more maneuverable and be able to take off a little quicker. You know, that's what I'm assuming. That's why all of these are going to get some kind of aim, you know, aim buff. You know, these are things, I guess, I mean, I don't know if they're just trying to give artillery like its final show, or if they're planning on buffing them, leaving them because they think it's good. I haven't read anything on it, but I have heard from people saying that, you know, that it's being tested. The stun mechanics have, you know, are being tested for console. So I do hope that comes out myself personally. I will say that getting one-shotted, you know, when you're trying to work for a mark of excellence and you're like right there at, you know, you're at the, you know, say 54 or 64, and you go into a game and then you're sitting there and then, you know, maybe you forget there's an artillery for 1 second and boom, he hits you and one-shots you, and then you go down by 1 whole point. That's horrible. It's happened to me so many times. That's why I stop at the first mark, because it's such a pain, you know, to go to the second mark. I'll go for a second mark if it's easy, but if it's actually hard, I won't get it. It's just me though. So the other stuff here, it does look like, yeah, it looks like they're gonna buff the penetration standard shells and the heat from these vehicles, which from what I remember, the Waffenträger E100 actually has APCR from what I remember. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that the Waffle Panzer IV or Panzer IV, that one had heat, but not the Waffenträger. So I don't know what this is, seriously, because I mean they have two different guns. So, you know, one shoots heat, one shoots APCR, I thought, but maybe I'm wrong. It could also be a mistake because it says piercing power 235 nerfed to 220, right? And then it says from that, right? I'm assuming the 220 was what, APCR? From that to 241, right? It's got to be APCR, right? I mean, it's what I remember this L100 having. I'm actually going to go ahead and look on the console so I'm not making a fool out of myself here. Just to make sure. Let's see here. So the gun that's on this, let's see here. I believe that's the 150. Yeah, the 150, which I actually have never used on my Waffle. But yeah, so that's actually where it's sitting right now. But mine says that penetration is 235 right now, and the I guess the heat on it is 334. So I don't know what the hell the 235/220 is. What is the 220 for? Maybe it's a typo. It doesn't matter. It just looks like they're gonna buff the round, give it a little bit more penetration, because it's basically the same gun off of the, what was it, E100. So they all got to get that buff, right? 246. So that would mean even the Nashorn should have something like that, because it has the 100. Well, actually, that's the 128. But the Borsig should have a bigger gun for sure. It should have more penetration with its standards, which is going to make that tank nasty. I think, because it just says the gun as a whole is going to be buffed, but it only says affects these two vehicles. So I guess this gun you don't get on the Borsig, so it must be a completely different one. Yeah, that's the second upgrade. Okay, so that makes sense. Now these are very exciting ones, but I'm going to say they're not really going to make a difference because of the overmatching, that we don't have overmatching. But I am going to say they're going to make a huge difference if you're going up this tier, because the AMX 5120 is going to become, I'm going to say, the king of Ghost Town at tier 9. It's going from 6 to 11 elevation, from 6 gun depression to 9 gun depression. That's why it was designed, and that's why it looks so weird, because you can get a lot better gun depression by moving the entire turret than if you just have just the gun inside the turret. So you can get a lower profile tank, but when you actually are looking down, it obviously increases its its camouflage rating, as and of course the 50B is going to get the same thing. 8 and 10, absolutely going to be make it a better tank, but you're still going to be you're still going to have to be super good with that vehicle to really take advantage of it. But I am going to say that it's going to make it a better hill fighter. You're going to be able to get up on top of ridge lines and shoot, and it's going to make it a lot harder for people to hit you. I'm going to say that the AMX 5120 could possibly be a 761, competitive tank now with that extra, it'd be nice if the in-between shots were actually, they gave us like 277, instead of a full 3 seconds in between. But it doesn't matter. I've actually had no problem with that. If you fire too fast, you end up hitting dirt anyway, so you have to pause at long range. So, so keep on trucking. Yeah, I didn't see anything here that was like, really, like you got a camo rating, buff of like 1 to 2 points. Same here. The same thing, camouflage getting buffed by almost 1. I don't know, that'll make a difference a little bit, but I don't know how big. The FV is going to get its top speed increased to 50, which they just recently on the PC made it 55 because it's just not competitive. And of course this is the one I was trying to tell you guys that scares me, because if it doesn't have the weak collision, if it doesn't have the weak hatches on it, then this is going to become like the tank you're going to want to play. This is going to be the one you're going to want to play. You need to get this tank. You need to start working for it right now, based on what we're looking at. This is why I said, bad news. And that's because this is going to be, if it doesn't have those nerfed hatches, the only way you can take this down is by shooting heat, which is what people do anyway. But you're going to get 10mm buff on its turret, and then on the sides it's going to get buffed too, so no more pin in the cheeks, and then even the back of it's pretty damn big. Now look at the turret armor going from 260 to 280, with the rest stays the same, but that's a huge buff. That's like, if he just slightly looks to the left, you're not going to be able to pin him with heat. It's going to be able to, absorb heat rounds even better than it does right now. And of course, they're going to give him the pay to play, living up to World of Tanks. That's what it actually looks like. It does look like they're going to give the pay to play gun. It says new package, 150 millimeter 45 41 ST year type. Now I don't know what that means, but I'm gonna go ahead and say that, you know, it gives you the possibility to do, you know, use APCR and do more damage, or sorry, you know, use HE and do damage and then do more damage, you know, and then if you play premium rounds, it's like an artillery, seriously, and shooting down on tanks like the IS-7, shooting down with that gun, absolutely, you know, obliterate, you know, your crew members. And of course the same thing, gonna get that extra package here so you can pay more to do more damage, and it's going to get a 5 kilometer speed buff, which I'm going to say the Type 4 probably needs that. Seriously, it does need to be a little faster. I mean, I think all these vehicles should be a little bit faster. There's nothing worse than getting to the battle and it's already gone, you know, or, you know, you get annihilated because you're on a map that has nowhere to go except for open fields, you know, and you just get obliterated by artillery. So it's like good game, artillery, good game, artillery, and that's terrible. But, like I said, we have to wait till this comes out, because if it has the nerfed hatches, you can still pin it with standard shells. You just have to be good at it. You have to be good at it. But if it has the pay-to-play gun, if he hits you, he's going to do 800 to you. And the lighter the lightly, you know, the more lightly armored you are, the worse the more damage he's going to do to you, and that's terrible. So I'm going to say that's probably the tank you're going to want to go for. Now here's where the real bad news comes in. If you're a big fan of the US tanks, yeah, a lot of these are going to get, you know, yeah. It does look like the T-28 is going to get the speed buff that the PC got. I'm assuming that the T-28 Prot's going to get it too. I don't see it on here. So top speed of the T-95, it's going to go to 20. So we're going to get that buff in here as well. It looks like they just tried to give us as much buffs as we can. Now, this isn't the... I thought to myself that this is the M48 Patton with the Israeli turret, because I'm going to say right now, as far as I remember, the M48 Patton had 120 on its turret at one point. And they gave it a little bit more and so on, but it says 254. So I want to go ahead and check some of this stuff out using, let's see, using Strat Sketch. So I'm not really answering back to anybody. That's not the right one. I'm not really answering back to anybody. See here, I don't want to use Strat Sketch. I want to use this. There we go. So right now they're in the 9.20. So this is what we're in kind of right now, obviously. I mean, this is like what we're in on PC. So let's go ahead and take a look at the M48 Patton and see. We'll look at it by going to the updates on its 3D model and see how thick the turret is. You know, so the Mandalet you can see is really buffed, and you can see here, you know, here has always been places you could pin. So I don't know, this doesn't look to me like it's been buffed at all. I mean, it's not 254. Let's go ahead and see if we go up to the 18 and see if there was a buff here. Same thing. Looks like it's about the same thickness, right? Same thickness. I mean, you don't want to shoot it on the outside of this turret or it'll bounce. But that doesn't look like it's 250. Let's go ahead and go to 2.9, or sorry, 1.9. Still got the same armor. And it doesn't look like it's 250 on that turret to me. It doesn't look like it's 254. So we might be getting to that Israeli turret. So let's try the 2.20, which has the lower hatch. And here you guys can see that it's actually 2 something. It's more than that. But this is the beefed up Israeli turret that's 250. So I'm not sure, but it's possible that we're getting this. Now, if we were getting it, I'm just going to go ahead and say that it should say on here that this should be increased too. But from what somebody told me, and I don't know if this is true or not, This was a buff they gave on the PC a while ago. You know, they made the turret 254. So maybe we, you know, if I could go back further than, you know, if I could go back further, you know, to like the 9.15, maybe we could see it when it had the 177. I have it on the console, and we can look at the, you know, like look at the colors, because you can't really see what the actual effectiveness is of it. But let me go ahead and go to console real quick, and we'll check that out. See what kind of armor that the M48 has. Because I mean, for right now on the PC, this is the tank to have just because of its hull down ability. You just really can't pin it. Has the Israeli turret on it. It really looks nice. See options. No, there should be one that takes off the 3D model off of it so you can see it live. High. No, that's not the right one. Collision. Visual. Yeah, there you go. So you guys can see that it looks more like the M60, and I really do like the look of the Israeli version. Has the 250s on it. That's pretty sweet. Yeah, but if this was going to be given to us, the proof would be that there'd be some collision modeling, or there'd be a new HD texture, which might actually be down in the bottom. So we'll look for that. But first, I think right now we have the 177 on it. So let me go ahead and grab the Elgato, and we can look at look at this. And I'll take this chance to see if anybody commented. Ice Strike says, "Oh, what are you complaining about?" You know what, Ice Strike? You were banned from my channel. I'm just gonna tell you that right now. Seriously, again. Again, I think I already banned you and then I took you off for a week, but I'm going to go ahead and say that, you know, there's nothing but negativity coming from you every time you come on my channel, always talking shit. It's hilarious. Alright, so, blocked. There you go. What's up, Rice? The update has been delayed, yeah, to the 10th. To the 10th, right? It does look like they changed it since the video I seen as well. Seriously. Any gameplay today? Probably not. I wish they told me the time on these. Alright, so looking at the patent, if we go into the garage here. So it says it's like 170. So yeah, 170. So we can check this real quick just to check it. I mean, because it says it's 170 on here. There are some places that are up to 190. But if we go and look at the packages for it, the final package, it says here that the turret is 178, right? So let's go ahead and go back to desktop and go back to the 9.17, and we'll look at the stats and see what it actually says for the armor here, which is something I didn't think about before. Let's see here. Yeah, it says 152. Yeah, so they did buff up the turret before, but look, it says here 177.8, right? So the hull armor is the one that's at 152, and that's only, you know, on that lip on the front of it, and it says here 177.8. So let's go ahead and go up to the next update and check that again. So the 18, you can see it's still the same. Let's go ahead and go to 19. It still says 177. And of course we go to the 120, you guys can see that it says 254. So there is evidence here that the patent's going to get the M48 collision model. Maybe they didn't really want to tell us, it's secret, but let's go ahead and scroll down and see where is the HD. Does it mention anything about HD, you know, any new HD models to specific tanks? Improvements maybe, but I'm gonna go ahead and say that I haven't seen the 254 on there except for on that update. So I'm like, are we getting the Israeli turret? is the Patton actually going to become a tank that's playable? Because it really is a main battle tank. It's not really a medium tank. It's a main battle tank. If you get the Israeli turret on that thing, that's going to be a fun tank to play. Maybe even tournament worthy. I don't know. Maybe. I don't see anything though. Let's go ahead and go back down to the America here. And I'm going to say that that's a hell of a buff, and I haven't seen anything equivalent to it. When we check the PC version, it's been solidly 177 millimeters thick forever. And so we're getting the horsepower buff. You know, T92 is going to be able to do 20. The T28 is going to be able to do 22. Going to make the grinds on those tanks much easier. That is the one tank, I'm going to say, the T95. That's the one tank that I actually used cash money to skip. Not kidding you. I did not want to. I think I played like 4 games in it, and I had played I don't know how many games in the T28 and absolutely hated it. Whenever I've gotten to a tier 9 game, they would just use heat and just pin me all over the place on it, and it just sucked. But I will say that I'm like super Unicum in it. I don't know how. I think it's because of its fire rate. Like, even though they might kill me, I'd still, you know, fire off 6 to 8 shots each game, so that makes up for it. Turret view range is being increased on the M103. I didn't actually know that it was lower than this. So the non-upgraded's getting one, and the fully upgraded one is getting a buff, which isn't going to make a difference for the tank. It's just a bad tank. Unless you're playing forward. It's never been a competitive tank. Shot disposition during movement is actually going to be getting, it looks like it's going to be getting a nerf. So that sucks. That means that the firing on the move is going to be much harder for the T57. E5, here's the bad news, fellas. Updated Commander's hatch armor. So if we go ahead and look at, I'm going to go ahead and say that there's a lot of evidence that says we're getting the Israeli turret, which, I mean, hey, if you're going to nerf the heavy tank, you know, you might as well give us a medium tank American that we can play and actually be happy in. Because I'm going to tell you right now that nobody plays the E5 on the PC right now. Nobody. I'm going to show you guys that real quick before we go any further too, so you guys can see. Let's see here. So America, go here. So this is on the latest update, keep in mind. But that's what we're looking at. We're looking at this 3D model. And so although it's not completely nerfed, frontally it still requires APCRs at tier 8, but pretty much any tier 9 can pin you head on. And of course, if you land shots on the side, it will deflect them. But this tank's been really good. If you're at this angle and people shoot at you, they still bounce you. Now you can pin it with a Tiger 2. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you that I actually did pin this with a Tiger 2 and kill him. Sorry, Tiger 2. I was in a Tiger 2 and was able to shoot him on the PC. And because he couldn't look at me, because if he turned his turret this way, they were going to pin him here. This tank it's going to be, you know, there's no point of playing it. You can't turn your turret this way and hope to not to bounce. It just doesn't work. You can wiggle it, but look at that. It still doesn't move. It still doesn't move. You see that? It just makes it weaker. So it's going to be unable to fight more than one target at once, which is going to just destroy this tank for tournaments. So I'm going to say it's this hasta la vista. Goodbye, E5. If we go back to the 1.9 before they nerfed it, you guys can see that it's 250. So it's going to lose 10 on that. So just think about that when you guys are playing. You know, that this was probably its only weakness, was to get this shot on it. But if you swung your turret away from them, let me see, like this. If you were hiding behind a wall, not obviously you wouldn't want to do it that extreme, but if you did that while you backed up, they wouldn't be able to pin you anywhere. Yeah, they wouldn't be able to pin you anywhere because they'd still bounce this hatch. Unless they were using heat, obviously. But you used to be able to do a spin away with it, which you can just kiss that goodbye. You're gonna be, you know, it's a like I said, it's just it's. I mean, I hate to say it, but if it didn't have the hatch, or if the hatch was shorter, and it was something that you could pin and it was a little bit harder to hit, then I'd say yeah. But because it's just out there, nobody should, you know, if you're going for this tank right now, I would just recommend, you know, it's not worth playing. You have to sit in the back. You can't play head to head with anybody. Get the E4. You'll be happier. Just tell you that right now. Get the E4. And this is not really an American heavy tank anymore. It's just garbage. I'll tell you, you still will run into people playing it, and they might have some good RNG, and you might bounce the hatch. But I'm going to go ahead and say that, you know, this thing's undergone a lot of buffs, or nerfs and buffs, you know, over the period of it being in this game. And this last buff is just ridiculous. So let's go ahead and go back to current and see what other tanks. Shot disposition during movement from 0.22 to 0.25. So they're giving the E3 a nerf too, which I haven't really played it very much. So I'm gonna say that I probably wouldn't notice it. The M5355, I'm gonna say this thing really just needs a huge nerf. It does. I mean, if they're not gonna give us, you know, right now, you know, this thing needs to have, you know, nerfed, you know, penetration or something, so it can't. I mean, getting one shot by a tier 9, you know, because they're using armor piercing rounds, that's absolutely horrid. So it looks like all the American tanks are being prepped, and I'm gonna go ahead and say that I've seen the same thing, the same kind of changes in these tanks right before they gave us the, you know, what is it, balanced, you know, balance of the, you know, was it balance of artillery, I think it is. went right before they added in stun mechanics. They did increase the mobility of vehicles, and it looks like they are preparing for that, which would be really nice, because I'm going to go ahead and say that if you're on PC and somebody does 3,000 damage with an artillery, you know they're good, because you were shooting groups of tanks, not just shooting individual targets. And right now, I mean, they really reward you. I mean, when I play artillery, I go for sweet, juicy targets. I don't necessarily go for helping the team sometimes. And, you know, if my heavy tanks are fighting and they're doing well, I won't cover them. I'll shoot at tanks that are easy kills, like, say, an AMX 50B, or, you know, a Leopard 1 if it's sitting around. I will take those juicy targets because I know I'll one-shot them. This doesn't reward you for shooting tanks like that. If you shoot a tank like that, you might get 600 damage, maybe even possibly a one-shot, you know, with a tier 10, but you're going to leave your team hanging. So it really becomes, on PC right now, it takes a lot of skill to play artillery. So if you think you're really good now, when that update comes out, that's when we'll see if you really are that as good, you know. And that's, I hear a lot of people going, I'm really good at arty, and I'm like, I'm good at arty too. I think anybody that can, you know, point a mouse and click can be good at arty. So I did skip the Chinese buffs. I was curious if they were gonna ever buff. Like, I thought maybe they might give us some of the newer buffs, but I am gonna go ahead and say that it does look to me like the patent is actually gonna get the Israeli turret. It doesn't say anything about HD textures. I mean, maybe it's a typo. I mean, is it a typo? Because, I mean, like I said, when we use the PC, you know, model, you can see that the only time that tank had it was with the Israeli turret, and so that's going to be crazy. But let me go ahead and change tanks really quick too. I wanted to go ahead and look and show you guys the difference between the mouse, you know, being buffed and nerfed. So I believe that the 9.17 is what we currently have. I mean, similar. There's obviously a lot of differences in this game. It's very similar, but not quite. So I don't remember if this is the buffed version. I do believe this is the buffed version. As you guys can see, it's just red, right? So at this angle, it requires heat. You're not pinning this. You're not pinning this. You're not pinning this. You could pin this though, right? Let's see how thick it is when looking directly at you. So it's got the 240, so 240 millimeter, and it's going to go from that to 260, which is going to increase its chances. So let's go ahead and go further up. Let's go to the 19, and this one, it's got the 260, and of course the lower plate as well. Now the biggest problem for this was if you wanted to track pin this tank, you can see here that unless you have apcr as your secondary, you're not pinning. You're not going to pin this. You can't track pin it. You see that? You cannot track pin it underneath it. There's even at steep angles, you can't track pin it. It would just bounce and eat up every round. Now you can go through here, but it ain't going to hit the hull. So if you guys are looking here, this is, I think, there's a little yellow spot there that you can actually pin, but you guys can see that these are the angles that I usually get. If this thing's just driving this direction, you can't pin it anywhere, as you guys can see. And this is going to be the future. Now they did say this, like all they said they were doing was buffing the turret on it. So what we're going to end up getting, I'm thinking, is the buff turret, right? Buff turret, but we're not going to get the buffed lower plate. We're going to get, you know, and then this is the newest version. Let me see. This is the newest version of the tank. It does not look like they actually went through with the nerf, but the bottom plate is still two something. So, but you guys can see here that, yeah, track pinning this thing is actually possible. Seriously, it's actually possible. So I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna nerf here. I think it's gun. I think it's stats they nerf. But yeah, I mean the turret. I'm gonna say if they're just doing the turret and they're gonna make they were gonna make this bottom plate 90 millimeters at some point, so that you could actually have a chance to pin it with standard shells. But it looks like on this public test here, let's go ahead and go to the 9.20. It looks like on the public test, it's still, you know, it's still overpowered. If you ask me, it's overpowered. So this is probably going to be a tank to get on your list of tanks to get, you know. Seriously, it's going to be one of those tanks you're going to want to get. It's got a better aim time than a medium. That's going to be ridiculous. Better aim time than a medium. Can you guys believe that? Okay. So, Chinese Type 5. I wanted to show you guys the differences between what we have now and what we had, you know, what we're going to be getting. Because it's scary if you think about it. Like, all you need to do right now is go, if you want to be, you know, if you want to become a Unicum player, get the mouse, get the, you know, and you can stat pat all day long. You can just pat your stats. And if you got the Type 4, Type 5 mouse and any of the little mouses, you're going to be able to do a lot of damage. And I'm not talking about the AMX 50-100 because I haven't played it. I have gone up against it with a tier 8 and was unable to pin it frontally at any angle. I was, however, managed to shoot underneath the turret at a really extreme angle and pin. So that would be very difficult to do here on here. So Japan Type 5. Going back to what we have now, I think this is the non-beefed up version. I think. Let's take a look, because yeah, 260, and you can see that there's no chance of pinning this with standard shells from any heavy. There's no chance. Now, you used to be able to pin through here at steep angles, but only with AP. You can see that it's pretty thin. So this is before the buff, I think. Let's see the 18. You can still see that you should be able to get this, but you can see it's much thicker. Do you see that? You're not going to be able to pin this with standard shells anymore and get track pins on it. It's just going to be track. That's it. Track and nothing else. Seriously. So you can see it's 300, which requires heat here. You're not going to pin those cheeks, and then I think on the was it the 19, they buffed it even more, from what I remember. Yeah, as you can see, the track's right here. So if you shoot heat or something, you're not going to be able to pin this, you know, at all. And they're talking about, you know, making it super. Now, this is what I was hoping they would give us, which is the current test model, where they basically nerfed these hatches, but it doesn't look to me like they did any of that. Seriously, it doesn't look like they did any of that. To me, it looks the same thickness. Okay, you can actually see it here. It goes from like 270 to 260. That's still we're going to require heat. And even the hatch is ridiculous. It's actually, this hatch is actually stronger than what the E5 has. And of course, if he's coming directly at you, you could shoot some heat, but all he has to do is simply angle like this and keep his turret, you know, relatively like not looking directly at you, and you're not going to be able to pin him except for if you use heat shells, as you guys can see. Yeah, only heat. So that's going to be dastardly. It's gonna, like I said, this is the tank. If you're going to be playing tournament, you might as well go for this tank now while you got the chance. Seriously. They did give us a thing for it, but I'm not too worried about it, to be honest. I'm going to wait till it comes out, because, I mean, I'll just say this thing's too slow to be competitive. But, you know, if you run 2 or 3 of these in a tournament, it's going to just demolish. Now, this one, I don't know if they actually did anything. It looks like on this particular one, all you get is HE. There's no armor piercing. It just, yeah, I can't tell here. Let's see. Did they come with any other rounds? Okay. So this one, it looks like they kept it, right? So just simply, if you want to pay more money, you could do 1,100 or you can do 1,400. So this is, I guess we're keeping this, right? We're going to have it. Let's see, back in the old days, you used to have AP, AP, and then HE, right? So it wasn't really a derp gun. So we're probably going to be getting this version of the tank, and that's unfortunate because it's just going to be, like I said, pay more money and do more damage. If you can land the shell on the back of a lightly armored vehicle, you're going to be doing 1,400 damage. That's just ridiculous. So that's crazy. Yeah, that's going to be no fun. So let me see here. I'm going to go ahead and go back to... Go back here, and I'm going to check out if anybody had any comments. Let's see, I missed a bunch. Let's see. Well, not going for the E5 now. Yeah, I wouldn't even bother. Any gameplay today? No. 150 on both Panzer IV and Waffle. Fire, heat and premium, yeah. Yeah, I didn't realize it was the 150 they were talking about. I thought it was just the normal gun. Let's see, the Luva gets the PC buff right. Yeah, that's what they're saying. Now, I will say this. They could change any of this. And they did it last month. Like, the last time they were supposed to give us this, and then they changed the notes right at the end. I don't know why. Like I said, it becomes an actual competitive Tier 8. And I'm going to say that it's probably in preparation that, I mean, I personally thought that Thanksgiving or Christmas, they're probably going to give us the T26E5, the M4, or the AMX 49 Mile, and the Object 25, or was it, is it U, or 252U, or Defender. Those 3 tanks are literally kings, or were kings of, you know, Tier 8 premium. There really isn't anything better than that. And I mean, I'll show you guys what I was talking about here with those vehicles in a second. But I am going to go ahead and say that if you guys weren't watching earlier, it says that we're going to get a turret buff of 254, which does hint that we could possibly get the Israeli turret early, which I would say that would be amazing, because you know, I'm just going to go ahead and say that having 440, 420 view range when your camouflage rating is at 27 is it pretty much defeats the purpose. It pretty much just makes you have a normal medium. I mean, it just kind of exits itself out. But right now, it's the Mandlet's only 177, and it can bounce stuff, and some people still love it the way it is because it's hard to play, and you have to play it a specific way. But when it's at 254, you aren't pinning this thing, not on the turret. Now, you can get some crazy shots off on the hatch because the hatch is going to be the Israeli version. I wanted to go ahead and show you guys that real quick again for people that are just tuning in. So if you guys take a look, it says right now that if you look at it that it's basically yellow, so it's 160. It's kind of lime green, so it's like 120, which, you know, it says it's 177 millimeters thick. If we look at packages, so I was curious because if you look here, it says turret is 178 7654, right? And then when we looked at on the PC, which I'm going to go ahead and do desktop again. This is going to be a little weird. Here you go. Let's go ahead and then after this, I'm going to go ahead and look at the new. Going to go ahead and look at the new one. So the current version. Let's go ahead and go to 9.17, which is as far back as we can go. And we're going to go ahead and look at American, and we're going to go ahead and look at the patent. Now, if you guys look at the stats, it says 178.8, which is what we have right now on console. And I've already did this earlier, but if you go to the 18, 19, and then the only time that you see it say 254 is when it's the Israeli version of the tank. So looking at the model here, this is the Israeli version of the vehicle. It looks more like an M60, and it really does. But let's just take a look at the armor thickness. You guys can see that this is pretty much your only hopes of pinning it. And it's got 8 gun depression, but I really love the model. I really hope they give us this model, including the spare wheel. It just looks awesome. Wouldn't that be cool? I mean, I'll say that it would make me feel a lot better about trading in the E5 as being one of the top, you know, tanks right now. I really wish they would give us the M60 as a variant as well with the same turret, but have the, I'll say, you know, because they have the M60 on here. They do have the M60. There it is right there. And the M60 actually it isn't as good as that tank. And you guys will see here, it's basically the M48. It just has, you know, so it's the M48. But the hull is a little better, as you guys can see. It has just better angling. It's not rounded like a bathtub. It's kind of sharpened. But it's still not quite the tank. So let's see. We want. That's not it. It's visual. So basically, we get kind of a hybrid between the two. We get the Israeli where they cut that thing off, and you get a flatter. If you look at it, you get a flatter hull, and it's actually more effective, as you can see, more effective. But yeah. So M60. Not looking like a very good tank compared to the latest, yeah, the latest one. So I don't know if it's a typo. Seriously, I mean, if we look at that, if we look at America and you guys check it out, look, I wonder if, I mean, I just wonder, is it gonna be, is it just a buff they're gonna give it? Are they not gonna give us the Israeli looking turret, or are they just gonna buff it? Which is a possibility. There's no word on it. Is this a typo? Because I know that the M46 was buffed too, and there's no mention of it being buffed here. Its turret was buffed, and there's no mention of it here. And you guys can see here that it goes from 177 to 254. So that's very exciting. And of course, we're going to be getting the one, you know, these tanks are going to become faster, the T-28. So they're packing in every nerf buff that we've seen in the last, since, you know, from the 917 to the 920. Where they're basically trying to get us caught up. Now it's very unfortunate that they didn't give us the buff. I don't know why they didn't give us the buff for the 113, which was the current replacement for the E5. This is the tank that you want to have because of its turret. As you guys can see, but you guys can see that it actually can be pinned with heat. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about the buff. Let's see. This was the old turret, which was still pretty damn good. I don't know what they buffed on it. I think it was the gun depression and stuff. On the 9. So let's see statistics. Let's see what got buffed between the 917 and now. The armor looks exactly the same. Let me see. Yeah, I don't see any differences. So maybe they already got the buff beforehand. So I'm really shocked I'm not seeing anything on it. Let's go to China and see if that's something that's going to get buffed too. China should be on the top. Yeah, no, it just says collision model. Hull armor going to be increased on the sides, which it should be, you know, because it's not a very good side scraper. So this is going to make it a competitive with the T10. It has a butter lower plate, but I mean, having 120 is going to give people a more reason to give the side instead of getting pinned. What about the so the 112? I think gets gets a buff as well. It gets the same hull armor almost. That's crazy actually if you think about it. So the 112 is going to become a much more effective tank, seriously. But I don't see anything about the 113. That sucks actually. We're not there yet though. You know, we're not there. Very disappointing. You know, I'm gonna say that I do like the fact that they're gonna beef the turret of the mouse, but they're not gonna go and change the bottom too much, the front plate, because I mean it's just so damn, you know, tough to take down. Serious, super heavy. The Type 5, yeah, that's the scariest part for me. The Type 5, you know, coming into this game, getting the 2 different rounds where you can, you know, do 1200 or you can do 1800, you know, in their HE. I'm pretty sure it's going to be like a heavy version of a Death Star for some tanks. And I mean, I'm going to say this tank and the mouse being so OP is why I stopped playing on console, or why I stopped playing on the PC altogether. But I'm going to say on here, people are just going to shoot heat. I mean, and they already do. That's what they're, when you run into the Type 5, you just shoot heat. I mean, because it's unpinnable frontally with standard shells. I've seen people get lucky and get some good RNG and pin them with standard shells. I've even done it. I've pinned it on the cheek before. Same with the Type 4. But it's kind of weird if you look at it. It's like they're leaving the Type 4 almost exactly the same. They're just giving it the gun. And then they're going to basically give the super buff to the Type 5. So who knows how that's going to be. Who knows how that's going to work out. But anyway, I think I am going to go ahead and play a little bit. Here. I'm going to say that, me personally, I really don't like the super heavies becoming tanks that could just slowly spin and just absolutely dominate. And I'm going to say that I'm probably going to start tomorrow. I think I'm going to start going down to get the Type 5. And I'm going to start going for the mouse at the same time. Probably work on those, you know, daily. Seriously. Gonna work on them daily to get them because I'm probably gonna need them for tournament. So before I do this stuff, I wanted to go ahead and say that I'm gonna need to use the restroom really quick, and then we're gonna look at what I think's coming out, not this month, but maybe Christmas, maybe sooner, who knows. But give me about 30 seconds. I'll be right back. Alrighty. Let's see here. So I hope that's not a typo between the, for the M48. It does look like it's gonna get the Israeli turret. I don't know. I don't really go on the forums. I don't even know where to go. I've been just using the tools you guys see to view vehicles to get some kind of an idea where the future is headed. But let's go ahead and check out Tier 8 premium tanks that should be coming out here. I don't know when, but some of them are going to be amazing and some of them are going to be kind of meh. Maybe you probably wouldn't want to get them kind of tanks. Just depends. So we're going to go ahead and go Tier 8. I don't see anything for premium. But you guys can see that there is a ton of premium tanks. Let's see. We need to go back to... Actually, I think we can go back to the 9.17 for this to see. They recently were talking about how they're going to buff up the all the tanks that need it. For instance, the IS-6 isn't competitive anymore because of the ISU or the 252U. That thing just absolutely destroys it. You can't even pin him unless he gives you the side, which is very, very rare. So yeah, this is the M4, sorry, the AMX M4 Mile 49, which is a pretty fun tank to own, but I'm going to say that it doesn't play like any premium tank before it, seriously. So I'm going to go ahead and pick America, Russia, we'll go Swedish, and we'll go German, France. So we just get these ones. We won't look at any of the others because there aren't any Czechs. Chinese tanks, although are decent. These are really the ones that we want to look at because of like you don't see this is the Patriot, which is one of the highest credit earners in the game right now on PC. The Patriot version, not the T26E5, but if you guys look at it, it's just basically a Persian. It's basically a Persian with a little bit better armor, slightly better. I mean, we're not talking too much. A little bit better turret. The cheeks are still kind of weak. You can shoot some heat on it. It's got a beefed up hatch. This is back when it first came out, I think. I don't know if they nerfed it or not. It does have some, it looks like extra. Yeah, even this is kind of beefed up, so a lot of weak points that that the Persian normally has doesn't. But if you guys look at the stats of it, it's got a 6.9 reload, so that's what made it so appealing. Now if we were to run, let's just run some vents, rammer, and let's throw on Brothers in Arms. And we'll just leave it with that. We don't need anything else. And of course, there is the option of chocolate, right? Because it's a premium tank. So let's go ahead and run Coca-Cola, sorry. So with Coca-Cola, you can see that you can get the reload down to 5.61, which is like Soviet medium. And you can see the DPM is at, was it 2566? So if we were to go further into the most current, you guys can see that it still has that, like with everything. Let's go ahead and run this again, soda. You guys can see 5.36. So that's pretty good. This is the best tank. I'll just say it's the best tank for training crews and money making as far as multiplayer goes. Seriously. And then so if we go back to the full list, let's go ahead and go to Russia. And I wanted to get the first appearance of it, which I do think is the 9.18, where you get the was it U25? There it is. The Defender and this both have two different skins. So the Defender is the one a lot of people pick, but I personally picked the Object because I liked it because it looked better to me, and I like the fact that you could see the fenders, but they both are the same. But so this is in the 9.18, and you guys I wanted you guys to take a look at this. So it's a 200 right here, And then basically tier 10s have a hard time pinning it from here. You guys check that out. So if you can get this thing hauled down and hide the pike nose, it's very difficult to pin this thing. Seriously. Very difficult. Very difficult. It does have the same flaws, and it is kind of like a super version of an IS-6. And I would recommend getting this thing because of its damage. Its alpha damage is 440. So, which, I mean, they should give us that here soon. The damage increases. I kind of wish they would nerf the damages of all the tank destroyers too. Just, you know. But, anyway, let's go to the current model of the vehicle. And I don't think they've changed it too much. I think the lower plate has become a little bit thinner. But the upper armors actually looks like it's just the same. Yeah, it looks like the turret's same thickness. Yeah, those are really the only weaknesses, is shooting those hatches on the top. So this thing's ridiculous. Even the pike nose at this angle is still above tier 8, which makes this thing have some of the best armor and side scraping potential. I don't know about reverse side scraping because PC doesn't work the same as console, but you can see here that this wouldn't be good because of the angling. It has the pike. It has a pike ass, which probably you guys never thought you'd hear me say that one. So 130 for hull armor, 250 for the turret, which is going to be the standard for all premium tanks from here on out that don't have matchmaking preferential. We're going to see the T-34 get a view range buff, which I didn't read, and I was actually shocked to not see that they didn't buff it. And I think the reason why they didn't want to buff the T-34 right now is because they want people to buy the Patriot when it comes out. I mean, that's just personally what I think, but so this tank's just, crazy. But I'm going to go ahead and say that if you guys take a look at, at its reload time, even with running, the best stuff you can get, it's still not the best. That's a long time to wait. 12.26 seconds. Now keep in mind you're going to be bouncing damage like crazy in this tank when it comes out. But if you guys take a look at it, at that accuracy, that's pretty horrible. And that's with Brothers in Arms, keep in mind. Let's try putting smooth ride. And is it snapshot not on here? So I already did snapshot, which is just going to increase your accuracy while doing your thing. Now, aim time is bad too. I mean, I would literally go. I go for an assault, and because it's a premium tank, you could run combat rations. But even then, I mean, look at, you're talking .39 max. That's the most accurate you're gonna get. So if you try and shoot this thing long range, you could just forget about it. It's not gonna hit nothing. You could get lucky because it's a Russian tank, but I'm gonna go ahead and say that I've played it and it doesn't have that Russian magic where you can shoot with full reticle. It's not like the IS-6 in that sense. It doesn't have that magic going on. It does have decent view range in comparison to any other counterpart, but that's just one tank to look at. Like I said, that's going to be coming out, I think, soon. This is the next one, which I'm going to go ahead and just personally just tell you guys right now that I purchased this tank. And if you guys don't like slow heavies, if you don't want another Tiger 2, see, a lot of people that play on PC, I think, don't really like playing the French tanks because they're glass cannons, artillery, will obliterate you, and so on. So if we go to France and we go and look at the Liberty, which is the one that I purchased, you guys can see here that it has some real thick armor, but it's very slow and it's very un-French-like. If you could imagine, it's basically a Tiger 2. It's a Tiger 2 with, let's just say, a 90 that only does 250 damage, and it doesn't even have the DPM behind it to really even justify it. Like, considering how big the turret is, it should have much higher DPM than 9.8. I mean, considering that its max alpha is only 250, that's that's bad. That's not good. The penetration too. It's basically the exact same gun that you get on every French tank, 90. You know, 163 millimeters and 132 millimeters. It's pretty much identical to the 90 that you get on the FMC and that. And you guys can see that the aim time is just horrid. Look at the aim time on that. It's bad. Even if we buff this tank up, it's not really worth getting. Especially if you like fast, speedy tanks. You can't really make this thing, any better. Look, even with the enhanced, it's still got 2.4. Let's throw Brothers in Arms on there. 2.4 aim time with this tank. It does have the armor to sit out there, but I am going to just point out something to you guys real quick. If you're looking at this vehicle, and you're in a tier 8, you can, look at how much thicker. Literally, like, the lower plate is the last place you'd want to shoot. But look, it's 230, so it's basically, a Tiger. It's got the same as a Tiger. Now, if he tries to side scrape, you can pin him here or here. It doesn't matter. You can't side scrape with this thing. You cannot. You can see here that you have to face people head on. And I will say that it does have something that most tanks don't have. And that is it has 10 gun depression. But I'm going to say you're so slow that it's very hard to even get there. And the turret is amazing. I'm going to say it is a good turret. If you don't like the way French tanks play, I want to say I don't understand why you would want to get this tank, or why you'd even be going up the French line to begin with. So if you like the Tiger 2, this is basically the same tank. Now you guys can see here, it's 250. So tier 9s eat this thing alive with standard shells. You have just enough to pin it with standard shells here. The turret is your only avenue to try and escape from that. But if you check it out, it's only 60 on the hatch. So 60 on the hatch. I actually once got head-to-head with a Type 4, and he used that new derp cannon and did 1600 to me, killing me. Seriously. Death Star, same thing. He hit me from, I don't know, 100 meters. Hit me like right here. And it just absolutely, So in everywhere but the front, it's French. So artillery can hit you one shot. So just keep in mind that when this tank comes out, it's not really it's kind of a, I'm going to say, if you're a collector, you'll probably enjoy having the tank. But I'm going to say, as far as playing it, it doesn't have anything you want. It doesn't have good DPM. The armor is only good at tier 8. It's only good hull down in other matches. And of course, it has that horrible hatch. It does have good gun depression, but try driving up a hill, seriously, in it. It does 20 to 12 kilometers. It's very slow. Yeah, it's not the best tank. So I wanted to show you guys what you're getting this month too before we end this live stream, which is the buffed up. Let's go ahead and go back to the days before the buff, and we're gonna go ahead and look at tier 8, the Luva. All right, so it looks like we can't go back before. So we won't be able to compare it with the old version of it, but let's just take a look at the 3D model, and you guys will see that this tank gets a severe buff. Okay, so it could still be pinned with tier 9 heat, here. But look at this. This actually is higher than any heat in the game. You'd have to have 340 to pin this, and it's spaced. So you'd still would have to pin here, and you guys can see that there are weaknesses on the tank. But look at that. Like, look, let's just check this out. Look. So side scraping, right? It's basically a Tiger. It becomes a Tiger with the same kind of crappy lower plate as a Tiger, but you can sit out and, side scrape with it. And because of the turret having the 10 gun depression, I mean, this is what you guys are going to be getting. So I'm going to say wait for the update to come out. If you guys are planning on buying this tank, wait for the update to come out before you get it. Because, like I said, they changed it at the last minute last time. They really did. They changed it at the last minute before. But having 150 compared to 120, like you guys, if you guys look at it, it doesn't look like much, but that's 150. That means, you know, it's basically got the exact same slant as the Tiger 2. Actually, we can actually compare it. Let's go ahead and go Tiger 2. Collision model. I'm sure the Tiger 2 is slightly better because it is angled more, but you guys can see that it's got the same thickness, right? Look at the lower plate, same thing. It's just the Luva's lower plate's a little higher. But if you guys were on the PC and you were shooting this, you could pin it with pretty much, you could pin it with standard shells in the turret. But on console, you can shoot it with a tier 9 and it'll most of the time bounce here because you can't actually hit those locations. But look, take a look at that. So it's just over 200 effective, but it will bounce APCR from tier 7s. And the hull here will bounce standard shells from any tier 8 and even APCR from any tier 8. But at tier 9, it becomes an overmatched situation where you can't bounce anything. So but if you play, if you're good with the Tiger, you're going to be good with the Luva. I'm just going to tell you that right now. The Luva is a very good tank. Very fun tank to play. Now, this is something I didn't see in any of the notes, which was kind of disappointing. But like I said, I think that they're going to wait because they want to guarantee that people buy the Liberty. Or it's not the Liberty, sorry. It's the Dependence or whatever it's called. Defiance or the Independence. I can't remember the name of it. I've been talking for a while. So Patriot, that's what it's called, the Patriot. So to guarantee people buying the Patriot, I think they're going to wait to give us the T-34 buff, which it's only statistics. For instance, it gets a view range buff. You know, it gets a view range buff. The accuracy gets a little bit better and so on. So in the 9.20, you guys can see that it's got 380 view range, which has been needed for a long time. I mean, if you ask me, it should have 400. You should get 400, but you know, there's no mention of it. I think it also needs a speed increase. I mean, it needs to actually do 35, not 25, because it says it can do 35, but it can't really achieve it. And it's not really, I'm going to say it's not the most competitive. The gun elevation as well isn't exactly, it's still 8 when it should be more like 10. And I don't know why they did that. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm going to check it right now. Let's see if we can find the gun depression here. Disposition, traverse, damage. I'm not seeing it here. Where is that at? Oh, here it is. So it does get 10. So they're going to buff it to 10 as well, which is huge. That's a huge difference. So I actually was waiting for this because I'm going to say that I definitely am going to be saving up, and if I can get the Liberty, or sorry, I call it the Liberty. If I can get the Patriot, I'm going to get it. And I'm going to say that's probably the only one I'm going to get is I mean the Patriot. And I'll probably get, if I can save up enough money. I mean, seriously, if I can save up enough money, I'll get the Patriot and probably the Russian ISU-152. But I'm gonna go ahead and say that I'm kind of over premium tanks. I really am. I'm over premium tanks. But I will say that having a point sapper like that, if I wanted to train a crew, I'd want to have the Patriot for American crews. If I was in a German tank, I would want to have, you know, the Luva. And so, and I think that's exactly what's coming here in the future. Hopefully that's a Christmas present. My personal opinion, if I could, and I'm saying if I could, I personally, what I want for Christmas is artillery to be nerfed. Not nerfed, because it's not really a nerf. It's more of an annoying buff, you know? Okay, so I'm going to be reading your comments here, and then I was going to go ahead and close on out. So, the Luva gets the PC buff, right? And it says, let's see. So, Rice says, I don't know. I don't think we will get that update so soon. Yeah, well, that's the thing. I'm like, it says on their 254, you know? So, the patent is pretty good. New turret. with 440 view range and 250 front turret. Oh, nice. Yeah, it could be a typo, though. Just keep that in mind. I mean, we looked at it and we seen it said 254. And that means Israeli turret, right? So, at me from Ray Sunshine, you going to be playing tanks later? Yes, I'm going to be playing tanks later. Let's see here. The Type 62 and the Black Bulldog are coming. Yeah, I've seen that, you know. And I was going to say, you know, it's going to be kind of like a common tank. I mean, what I mean is that the Black was really good while we were waiting for those other updates. But once those super heavies come out, that 90 really doesn't really do much. Do you know what I'm talking about? I mean, you can still use it. Don't get me wrong. It's probably worth it. If you like light tanks, the M41 Black is amazing. Having an actual 90 on a light tank's crazy. And I think it's amazing. But I personally couldn't afford it. So let's see here. These tanks are coming to console. Well, they should be. So Rice, I'm just showing you guys what I personally believe's coming out. You know, like it's the next logical stage, right? We haven't seen the update. You know, like I'm gonna look through the notes again while we're looking at my M48 spinning, because I'm kind of like, I'm going to say that I'm really interested in, you know, if it's going to get that turret or not. I don't think it really needs it, but I'm going to go ahead and say that if you're not fast, you got to be able to take a hit, right? And this just can't do any of those things. It's got a great gun. I've played it and had some amazing games in it, but I mean, if you get the 254, I'm going to read the notes again. I'm actually going to refresh it just to make sure that I'm not tripping here, because they have changed these notes since yesterday. Just going to tell you that right now. They've changed them. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the US. So just to kind of do a recap, the E5 is going to get its hatch nerfed to what it was before. It looks like the Persian is going to get like gun disposition, you know, increases. But it does say that the M46 increased armor on all guns. And I think it's because you can actually shoot through most guns, and a lot of people don't know that. If you have APCR rounds, you can just shoot somebody directly in the gun and it'll go right through the turret. If you guys aren't aware of that, you can do it. But it says here, turret armor on the M48 from 177 to 254. And the only update we could find on the PC that actually has it is the most current. So it's here. I mean, I can see it. I showed it earlier in the stream, so that's definitely a huge possibility. I'm gonna say I'm disappointed that they're updating the commander's hatch on the E5, but I am gonna go ahead and say that I did get my use out of it. And I mean, for the time that I had it, but I am gonna mothball it. Like as soon as they nerf the hatch, this thing's gonna be retired. Seriously. I was going to go for my second mark, but I mean, I knew the day was going to come. It's why I didn't actually, you know, I just recently did the review on it, because I was pretty sure that they were going to nerf it back to the way it was before. And once you get that hatch where it can be pinned, you know, by standard shells off tier 8s, it just becomes an absolute, you know, nightmare to play. It's kind of like playing a German tank where you got the bottom plate to worry about and you got the hatch to worry about as well. Just very, very tough tank to play. And I'm going to go ahead and say that the only thing that really comes in next, you know, as a competitive tank is the T-57, but they're going to nerf the dispersion on this next one by a 0.5, which means if you actually are looking left and right and fire, you're going to actually be you're not going to be hitting anything. Seriously. So the American tech tree is going to get absolutely, you know, as far as heavies goes, you're going to just see the tanks disappear. Seriously. Like the E5 is going to be the least played tank, because I mean, when you're getting shot by tier 8s, people aren't going to want to play it. Now the M48, I'm going to say that does bring up the possibility of making it a great, you know, competitive tank. Possible. It's not fast enough to be in a competitive game, I personally think, but it could be played in specific instances, say on hills, like any hill map. If you have the 254, it's going to be a point sapper, and I'm glad I got it. But going to go ahead and tell you guys my next plan here. I mean, starting tomorrow, I'm going to go ahead and start heading for the mouse. Seriously, that's a long grind for me. You guys can see I avoided it like the plague. I'm going to have to go all the way back to the Panzer H. You guys can see that I researched it so that I could, if I ever decided to go and get it. You guys can see I definitely got the money to do this tech tree. But I was hoping, I mean, I'm just going to say that it's going to take me a little bit of time to grind up to the Tiger P. So I was hoping to play the new mouses, you know, before. Now, right now, you can go and get the mouse, and what they'll do is if you own the mouse already, or if you want to free XP it, you're going to get the next tech tree unlocked for free. Now, that means you still have to pay the silver for it, but I'm going to say that I didn't go up this tech tree because of this tank. Seriously. Which is going to get a buff. This tank's going to get a buff. And, you know, it's going to get a buff 150 millimeters according to this update. So, that's going to be good. So, but yeah, I think probably I'm going to buy the Panzer H. Yeah, Panzer H. Probably, I don't know, probably this evening, and I'll probably start grinding up this tech line. And of course, I need to start on the Japanese tech tree, because, I mean, you have to have it. I mean, I'm just going to say, you got to have it. It's going to be a competitive monster. So I'm going to go ahead and start up that, you know, probably today. Seriously, I have enough free XP to, let's see, maybe skip up. Let's see how far we can get up. So we can skip this tank altogether, get into this one. Let's see, free XP in these suckers. Definitely don't want to play it. There we go. We can get ourselves all the way up to the first OI. I will need a little bit more XP, free XP for that, so I'll probably work on that later. But yeah, I don't really want to play that tank, but I could start grinding from here and probably have this in about another 3 weeks, I think. The Oni, I've seen it played, and it's pretty you know, dastardly. The Oho is a nasty tank as well, so I'll probably definitely going to go for that as well. I do have a crew I can throw in these tanks too from the STA, which was a donation. I really appreciate the donation to my channel from one of my subscribers, which I'm going to go ahead and say that if you guys do want me to do a review on a tank for you, you know, I obviously don't have the money to do it, but yeah, it's a damn shame to see that the E3 is going to get a dispersion nerf. I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys too that if you don't like the E5 and, you know, after this update, your best bet is to get the E4 and play it like the E5, because I mean it has a bad hatch too, but at least it's harder to hit. And I'll show you guys what I mean by that. We'll look at the model. I avoided that tank too. It's all because of the hatch, to be honest. So looking at that hatch, you guys can see that it's 121 to 160, but I can usually pin it with standard shells. So it's pretty good though, hull down. You just got to keep moving and not let people shoot that that hatch. But I'd rather have a hatch there than to have the hatch that's twice the size sitting right next to it. And of course the E3 is just unpinnable. You know, you can't pin it. I think it's over 331. I've seen people pin it with heat before though, which is kind of crazy. But anyway, I think I'm going to go ahead and end this live stream. Like I said, everything I said is speculation. Who knows? They could throw out that tank. You know, they could throw it out. There could be huge changes in it, for sure. Yeah. So the Defender, I thought for Christmas we'd probably be getting those tanks like the Object 252U, the Patriot, the AMX M4 489. Are probably the next 3 premium tanks we're going to see. It's probably going to be some sort of a package deal, unfortunately, which means I'm probably not going to buy it. But, you know, I do have the T-34, so if they do give me, you know, if they do give me a buff, or if they do give us a buff on it, at least give me a better view range. I can do something and give me better gun handling so I can shoot targets at range better. And I can still use this as a crew trainer. But I'm going to go ahead and point this out to you guys that I'm going to take this crew and put it into the Patton. And probably put this crew into the E5. Or I might just leave it without a crew because, I mean, there's no point. Once that hatch gets nerfed, it can be played competitively with a very skilled player, but it just gets completely taken off the board for tournaments and comp because of that nerfed turret. But anyway, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this live stream, update 4.1 live stream. Basically my opinions and so on. All this stuff's subject to change until the update actually comes out. I was actually kind of confused that they wanted to still continue with the, you know, Type 4, you know, gun, you know, upgrade, and, you know, just a lot of the stuff they're planning on changing here. You know, I personally think that the matchmaker is okay, but I think what they need to do is they need to basically match up heavy tank for heavy tank, tank destroyer for tank destroyer, tier for tier. And I think that would balance out, if you ask me. I mean, maybe put it in testing and test it out, because I'm obviously not a game designer. But you ask me, that's what's wrong with this game is, you know, that when you play, there's like 13 other, I mean, it feels like 13, but even 3 super tank destroyers is too much. It really is. 3 tank destroyers is too much. Anyway, I don't think there's anything else to cover on this other than we're probably going to get the Chinese updates on the next one, hopefully, and the 113 is going to become an absolute, you know, beast of a tank, seriously. Yeah, the days of USA being comp tanks, I'm going to say that the M48 Patton just isn't fast enough, even with the buff, to really be a competitive tank, even with the turret, you know, upgraded. Now, I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm sure you could play it in certain circumstances. You could just sit there and just eat shells, as long as you're back, you know, going back and forth. And I do think that the Israeli turrets are needed, because the M48 Patton, when it was designed, the same problem that we had during the Gulf War, this tank actually would have done very well in the Gulf War, because there wasn't any tank-to-tank battles. You know, I mean, they're all gone. That was Desert Storm days. But after that, now everybody's going back to these hatches to protect people from getting sniped and shot in the face, which, you know, usually kills the commander or whoever else is leaning out the hatch. So this was a very good idea back then, you know, but now it's terrible. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this live stream. Don't forget to comment. If you guys do have some opinions, I do take them into consideration, but if it's just something very negative, you know, I don't really care, you know, seriously. All right. Thanks for watching. Later.